From every corner of the imagination, these are the Boundless Chronicles with Tracy Turner.
A weary traveler in the depths of winter came into a dark village. His feet were sore and his stomach was empty. He walked door to door with nothing but a single copper coin to his name, and asked the villagers if he could buy some of their food. At each door, a gaunt villager told him that they were starving, unable to spare even a morsel of their winter stores. Well, finally, the young man sat down in the center of the square, aware of the eyes peeking at him from shuttered windows. He reached down, brushed some snow from a small rock beneath his feet, and lifted it. With a start, he leapt to his feet, looked up to the shuttered windows, cleared his throat, and made an announcement. "You silly, starving people. How can you hide behind your walls desperate for food when you have perfectly good stones like this laying all around you? Does but one woman here have a good kettle she could loan me? I promise enough stone soup to feed her whole family if she loans it for me for the day." Well, the washerwoman had a kettle frozen behind her house, a large kettle it was, last used for stew at Christmas time, too large to use for her family's meager meals and too small for laundry. She volunteered it, and the young man dragged it, full of snow, from the outdoor hearth that it had occupied for a month to the center of the square. Villagers, bored in the dark winter, gathered around to help the men start a fire and melt the snow and ice in that pot. They were all convinced that he was nuts, but they helped him nonetheless. It was a sleepy village, and his obvious lunacy was worth a few cold feet to observe. Once the snow had melted, he lifted the stone high for all the villagers to see and plopped it into the pot. "Stew us, blew us, magic rock," he chanted. "Give us soup within this croak." He walked 3 times around the pot and took a spoon someone had handed him and dipped it in. Ever the diligent cook, he tasted the water in its mild aftertaste of Christmas stew and shook his head. "It's blind, it is, it's blind," he told them. "If I only had a bit of salt." Well, the butcher told him that he had salt sitting in his salting pot, the remnants of the salting midwinter's catch, which he had run out the week before. It was brown and hardened into one lump, but he'd give it to the man for free, he would. Well, the man took his offer gladly and added the brown lump to the pot. He again took a sip. "The magic is working," he told his audience, and indeed there was a faint smell of food coming from the pot now. He sipped the soup again and made a face. "No, it's too sweet," he said. "If only I had the ends of some turnips or some radishes to give it some bite." Well, 2 women looked about. They went to their house, coming out with half-rotten vegetables. The man carefully cut the rotted parts away and added the vegetables, greens and all. Well, there was no mistaking that it smelled like food now. The man tasted the soup and he said, "It's missing something," and handed the spoon to the brewman's wife, who nodded, then scurried into the closed tavern, returning with a small burlap bag of barley. As she dumped it in, the wife of the mayor objected. "You can't have barley and soup without having parsnips," she declared, and she produced a bunch of limp, graying parsnips, which she handed to the man, who skinned them, chopped them up, and plopped them into the pot. Well, another woman objected as well, adding a fat, dry onion to the broth, and another, and still another, adding a small secret ingredient that made the soups they made at home perfect. Well, within an hour, the smell of the soup filled the square, and the people came from every crevice and corner with a bowl. The mayor of the town hailed the wanderer as a savior and put him up in his own house after he had the villagers fill their bellies with delicious, if odd-tasting, stone soup.
From the edge of the imagination, you've been listening to Appalachian storyteller and author Tracy Turner and his Boundless Chronicles.